Amen. All right, so last week we talked about how Jesus prepared breakfast for the disciples just several days after he rose from the dead. And the disciples were amazed. Peter was so excited that he left the boat and swam to the shore just so he could be nearer or closer to Jesus. So, at this point, Jesus was waiting there, of course, with breakfast, and after he fed them breakfast, then he asked Peter a very important question. The question of, do you love me? So the title of our message today is, do you love Jesus? Why don't you ask the person sitting next to you, do you love Jesus? Or ask yourself, do I love Jesus? Do I love Jesus? Well, you know, when a person asks another person, do you love me? Have you asked a person that? Maybe your husband, your wife, your children, a friend, your mom and dad. Sometimes we even make judgments. I remember when I was a kid, you know, I probably uttered it, saying to my mom or dad, you don't love me. And some of us have heard those words from our children also, right? When we refuse to do what they wanted to do, they accuse us of not loving. And you know, with us, when a person asks another person if that other person loves him or her, it is maybe because that person is observing that he is not or she is not loved, right? Because we can't read another person's mind, right? We can't read another person's heart. And so we are looking for clues from the other person. The clues may be words being uttered, and there are some people who are not comfortable saying, I love you. Right? Some of us grew up in families where there were no I love yous. That it always felt awkward. Not even hugs, right? No hugs, no I love yous, no sweet nothings. You're just supposed to know it already. Why? Well, I feed you every day, don't I? I buy your clothes, don't I? Right? I provide you a roof over your head, don't I? So, don't those things tell you that I love you? Right? And so when a person asks another person, it's because the clues that he is expecting to prove to him or herself that he or she is loved maybe is not there. But when Jesus asked Simon Peter if Simon Peter loved him, we know that it's not because Jesus did not know, right? Why? Because Jesus sees the heart. Jesus knows the heart. Jesus knew the condition of Simon Peter's heart. So the question is, then why would Jesus ask Simon Peter if Simon Peter loved him? Right? Why would Would it be for Jesus' sake? I don't think so. Because if he already knew the condition of Simon Peter's heart, for whose sake would the question be? Well, it will have to be for Peter's sake. Right? It will have to be for Peter's sake. And everything from verse 15 to verse 19 speaks, I believe, to Simon Peter, so that Simon Peter would have a time to evaluate his heart and evaluate his mind, especially his relationship to Jesus Christ. And there are three things that I would like for us to see here that Jesus was trying to confirm in Simon Peter's heart. Not that Jesus did not know. He already knew. But he wanted Simon Peter to confirm these three things in Simon Peter's heart. And I believe that these things apply to us as well. Because we have to always go back to the truth that everything that is written in the Word, in the Bible, is for us. And it's not just for us to know, but it's also for us to obey and to apply. There is always something for us to obey in every word that is given to us in the Scripture. It may not be directly for us like it is here for Simon Peter, but the question we ask is, how does this apply to me? What is this story? What is this account telling me to do? In the same way that we believe this account is telling us that Simon Peter was led to do. All right? Number one, it is important to confirm our love for Jesus. It is important to confirm our love for Jesus. When I do counseling for husbands and wives, this is one of those things that I always try to encourage husbands and wives. You always have to confirm to your wife or to your husband that you do love each other. It is so, so important that there must be that settled thing that I do love my wife. I do love my husband. Right? That has to be settled. But how do you do that? Well, there should always be clues saying it. Like, for example, they said that for every negative thing that you do or say to the other person, it takes 10 positive things to offset it. That's why we always say, you do 100 things and it's not appreciated, but you do one bad thing and that is what's remembered. Isn't that true? Why is that? Well, because for some reason, it's the negative thing that registers the most in a person's mind more than the positives. So how do you do that then? Then do a lot of positives. Say, I love you 100 times a day if you can. Because during one of these days, you might say something. Right? So it must always be confirmed. The same is true with our love for God. Let us do the things every day that show our love and affection for God. So that when people see us, they will know that we do love God. When our children see us on a daily basis, then they will know, oh, my dad loves God. Or my dad loves my mom. We have to confirm this in our heart, that we do love God. And it's not for God's sake, because He knows the condition of our hearts. It is for our own sake. Because why? We all have the tendency to be distracted by other things. That our love for God is put in the back burner. So with the things that we do on a daily basis, we have to ask ourselves, do the things that I do on a daily basis show my love for God? Does it? Like, for example, do I love spending time with God? Because one of the ways we show our love for someone is by how much time we are willing and wanting to spend with the person that we love. That's one of those things that I could ask myself. In John chapter 14, verse 15, Jesus said that it is our love for Him that leads us to obey His commandments. John chapter 14, verse 15 says, if you love me, Jesus said, you will obey my commands. And the commandments of Jesus are not restricted to not stealing, okay, not coveting, not murdering. No, there's so many things. Like, for example, the question I asked, do I love spending time with God or not? His Word, in prayer, or do I put that aside as if I don't care if I spend time with God or not? Right? Do I obey Jesus when He tells me to forgive others, to love others? Jesus says if we love Him, we will obey His commands. And so the question of Jesus to Peter saying, Peter, do you love me more than these? Actually, that statement is like a puzzle just about to every theologian and commentators on this passage. Because Jesus said to Peter, Peter, do you love me more than these? The question is, was Jesus saying, Peter, do you love me more than the other people love me, like the other disciples love me? Or was Jesus saying, Peter, do you love me more than these fish or boat? Which one was Jesus really referring to? Was Jesus comparing Peter's love to the love of the disciples, the other disciples? Or was Jesus comparing Peter's love for the material things like his boat and the fish that he caught? We don't know exactly. But it could be both. Could be both. It could apply to both. And it's the same question for us also. Do we love Jesus more than others love Him? Or do we love Jesus more than we love the material things around us? It is a question worth asking for us, not for God, but for us. Who do I love more? People or God? Who do I love more? Material things or Jesus? We must confirm in our hearts that we love Jesus more than anything else in the world. And we hope and pray that it will show in everything that we do each day. Point number 2. It is important to confirm our responsibility to the flock of Jesus. You see, 3 times Jesus asked Peter, Peter, do you love me? And 3 times Jesus referred to taking care of the flock, feeding the lambs, tending the sheep, and shepherding the sheep. So Jesus is telling Peter, Peter, if you love me, you will have love for my people. You have a responsibility to my people. And that's one of the things we have to confirm in our hearts. If I love God, I must not overlook my responsibility to my brothers and sisters. And the first group of people that Jesus told Peter to really watch for or watch over are the lambs. The lambs. That would be the young ones. Young in age and young in their Christian life. That is why Jesus says, do not cause one of these children to stumble. Do not cause one of these children to stumble, he said. And it's referring to the young ones or those who are young in the faith. Because those who are young in the faith are the ones who stumble easily by the actions of those who are supposedly not young in the faith anymore. But what Jesus is telling Peter is that, Peter, you have a responsibility to those who are young in the faith and to those who are young in age. And that is why we do everything that we can to those who are young in the faith to grow in their walk with God. And to those who are young in age, so that they may come to know Jesus even at a very young age. Because salvation is for everyone. And that is why at the very young age, we should let them know about Jesus Christ. Last Thursday in our Bible study, we were actually studying in Luke chapter 18 about how when the parents brought the little kids to Jesus, the disciples rebuked the parents and say, no children here. But Jesus told them, no, you let these little children come to me. Let them come to me. For to such belong the kingdom of heaven. And Jesus even emphasized the fact that he said, actually, unless you have the faith like these little children have, a childlike faith, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. So let the little children come to me. Let the parents bring their children to me. See, and that is our responsibility as adults. We have a responsibility to the flock of Jesus, especially the young ones. And we must do everything that we can so that they can be brought to Jesus and learn more about Jesus. As we grow in our faith, we must take the responsibility to feed, to tend, and to shepherd others. We have a responsibility to each other, to help each other grow in our walk with God. Say to the person sitting next to you, I have a responsibility to help you grow. Come on now, don't be shy. There you go. See, she likes saying that to you, Dave. I have a responsibility to help you grow. I am here to encourage you. I am here to help you get closer to Jesus. Right? And we do that in many ways. Just by seeing each other here on Sundays encourages each one, right? Yeah, it's an encouragement already. Sometimes without us even saying a word, just by showing up, we are encouraging other Christians. All right? And that is our responsibility to the flock of Jesus. Point number 3. It is important to confirm our commitment to follow Jesus. In the last part, in verse 18, after the third time that Jesus asked Peter, do you love me? Jesus again said to Peter, then tend my sheep. Tend my sheep. You remember 3 times Peter denied Jesus. 3 times Peter denied Jesus, and then the rooster crowed. We all remember that story, right? Well, here, 3 times, Jesus gave Peter a chance to confirm his love for Jesus. And like I said, it's not really for Jesus' sake, because Jesus already knew the condition of Peter's heart. It was for Peter's sake. For Peter to be able to say, 3 times. I'm sure remembering the 3 times he denied Jesus. Now, Jesus gave Peter 3 chances to declare his love for Jesus. At the end, Peter actually cried and said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And so Jesus said to Peter, then tend my sheep. And then Jesus went on and said, truly, truly, I say to you, when you were younger, you used to gird yourself and walk wherever you wished. But when you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will gird you and bring you where you do not wish to go. Now, John gives us a clue as to what Jesus meant with this. So in verse 19, John says, this Jesus said, signifying by what kind of death he would glorify God. He would be taken where he doesn't want to go. His arms will be stretched, even though he didn't want it stretched. Could Jesus be telling Peter, Peter, you will be crucified? We don't know. But tradition does tell us, based on the stories recounted by others, not necessarily those who witnessed it, by those who wrote down the line, like, for example, Origen, one of the church fathers, recorded something like Peter was crucified during the time of Nero. We don't know exactly. We don't know. We don't have other documents supporting it, but it was mentioned by other Christians down the line. Not by Christians who lived during the time of Peter, but what we know was that Peter was persecuted and killed as a martyr for Jesus Christ. In his death, he did glorify God. Peter did. Whether he was crucified upside down or downside up, we don't know exactly. But what we know is that he was persecuted to death, glorifying God in his death. And after Jesus said to Peter, signifying the kind of death that he would die to glorify God, then Jesus said to Peter, Peter, follow me. And this is the third thing that we must confirm in our hearts. It is important for us to confirm our commitment to follow Jesus no matter what. Even in our death, we are to follow Jesus and glorify him. Our commitment to follow Jesus actually could lead us to dangerous territories or even difficult situation and difficult condition. Even as we speak right now, we have brothers and sisters in other parts of the world who, by following Jesus, are persecuted, losing their jobs, losing their families, losing their lives, because they have chosen to follow Jesus. Here in our country, we do have some sort of persecution already, but not to the point of losing our lives. It could come. We don't know. That we could lose our jobs, we could lose our families, we could lose our lives because of our decision to follow Jesus. But we have to confirm in our hearts that we will follow Jesus, because Jesus is telling us to follow him, even if it means putting our lives in danger or putting our families' lives in danger, because it is more important to follow Jesus than to protect our lives. We are to follow Jesus wherever he leads. Wherever he leads, we are to follow Jesus. Because that is the most important decision we will ever make in life. To surrender our lives to Jesus and become his followers.